Oh, technology. It is not my friend, but I'm working on it. Um, let's see. Now that I've gotten it to work. Happy new moon. Happy new moon in Scorpio. Uh, happy Devil's Night has passed. Happy Halloween. The corporate holiday that it is. And happy not Samhain, not Samhain, but in fluent Gaelic. So I've read. Not that I speak Gaelic. Shavna, a holiday of spirits. So if you didn't rage for Halloween, trust me, you didn't miss anything. Um, with Shavna and the new moon, we also have Dia de los Muertos. Uh, Feliz Dia de los Muertos to you and yours, and those that have taught us lessons and still teach us from the other side. And it is also officially Indigenous Heritage Month. And so with that, I say, Silakwo Dieha, Chineka Yulike, Yulstana. I honor my ancestors, and I hope you do too. And so, we are here with many spirits. My costume does not come off. And so for the new moon, thought I would pull so that we can figure out what's going the F on. People have been really interesting. I do feel like last year, okay, this is a theory, but I feel like last year Halloween was like about embracing and becoming the adornment of the costume, kind of like in those old Halloween movies where, like, at the stroke of midnight, the kids turn into whatever they're dressed as, goblins or ghouls, and the goblins and ghouls are stuck on Earth if they stay out past that or whatever. I don't know necessarily what movie I'm thinking of. Maybe Halloween Town. But I feel like this year is very much more about what's underneath the mask. Or was very much more about what's underneath the mask, and exactly that some costumes do not come off. And that regardless of the mask, some people cannot hide from their demons as much as they try. And in fact, use it as an excuse to let it loose, which is interesting as far as pop culture references. The commentary around certain celebrity costumes is definitely interesting. But alas, no masks here. Other than autistic ones, no masks here. Not right now. And the sun and moon together in the sign of the scorpion, in the sign of death, in the sign of a tower, and opposing Uranus and Taurus, which is very much going against the grain, which is very much going against. I feel like it's getting caught in eavesdropping, like not just going against the grain, but like blindly following, maybe, and where choosing not to do that can prove stressful, and push you farther from whatever groupings or circles you previously felt followed or following you previously felt yourself following. With the moon in Scorpio and opposing Uranus and Taurus, I feel like there's also an element of burnout and exhaustion to be commented on. And conversely, I think the opposite side of that is, in the face of burnout and exhaustion, how do we ground? How do we create grounding and alignment? How do we replenish? How do we ground through our will and our passion? How do we ground through the things that are fulfilling and uplifting? Because your will and your passion isn't something that you move toward because you're constantly, gaining or getting. Grounding is sort of this unpacking, not necessarily accumulation. And in the face of either stress to accumulate, or accumulation of responsibilities, or accumulation of debts, or accumulation of doubts and worries, how do we ground through that to find the will and the inspiration beyond the fear. Um, Saturn and Jupiter are also trining with the moon. The moon is also squaring Mars in Cancer and Pluto Capricorn. So this is very much, I know I've talked about Mars and Cancer's influence, but with Pluto Capricorn, very much like the insecurity and the overdoing, but Pluto and Capricorn beckoning for, you know, you writing your own rules and you writing your own law, which in Enochian is how you work the wheel, is how you work the pentagram. There's actually a quote I have on my altar. Let's see if I can read it from here. Let's see if I can read it from here. Uh, who to himself is law, no law doth need. Offers no law, and is a king indeed. And is a king indeed. So consider that when you are moving and trying to figure out where that movement comes from and whether or not it comes from you. Do it because you want to, not because you have to. And it being a very spiritual month, that is something that I cherish, having learned through loved ones that have left this plane but not left my side. Uh, do it because you want to, not because you have to, and choose love and choose goodness. Um, choose passion over punitive process, or punishment or fear, and in that choice is a constant growth and constant motion forward. Fear those that think that they are good without trying, and cherish those that think that they are bad but constantly try good, or constantly try for better. This is again why I don't believe, and why I do not practice black or white magic, why I do not believe in good or bad, why I do not discriminate against demons versus angels. For I am one myself. Um, and so, with that, do it because you want to, not because you have to. And don't take that out of context and just do what you want and become a colonizer of spirit and mind and body. Um, do it because it calls to you, not because you're forced to. All right. We pull. And we will breathe and catch this glowy, glowy dark moon. It's glowing, it's just not to us. It is obfuscated. Occulted. Tuning into the full moon and all of the spirits that still are present on this plane, and all of our ancestors that wish to uh, help us on this journey for sake of understanding. And not just the good ones, dear. The good ones don't need us. The ones that are still hurting are the ones that we're afraid of, but we need. So, ready and make yourself available to understand and digest. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. I don't like that feeling. um, that was interesting, very intense. I felt very much like claustrophobic, trapped, like I wanted to get away. And like somebody was squeezing or like holding me there. Um, I think these are very much the ways in which that we feel trapped by circumstance. Um, and that can expand in many ways. Like, sure, yes, maybe we're trapped in relationship that we need to get out of. But also in a very real way, perhaps we're trapped in our own minds and the things that we anticipate or expect or assume. And that is your innermost, haunted house experience where the walls are just, coming in. And we want to push, we want to move, we want to, uh, uh, you know, struggle, I suppose. It makes me think more thrashing than swimming. Uh, in the context of sinking, sink or swim, this is thrashing. That's drowning, maybe even. Um, but that is something that can be alleviated again in between this polarity of burnout and exhaustion and grounding, and really anticipating or understanding that, even anxiety, it can pile on and it gets heavier and it's heavy and it gets heavier and it gets harder and harder to breathe. But even with something like an anxiety attack, there are steps to take to sort of expand your vision and expand your sensory perception of the moment. And that, my dear, is all reality is. So, how is it that we need to breathe through these structures? Even in astral projecting, like that's one of various methods to sort of, breathe through the barriers of this realm in the process. Um, It also often comes with a choice. The two of clubs is the bottom of the deck, which is fire energy, which is action energy, which is fearful energy, which is stabilizing energy too when we can find that. And it often comes with a choice. Um, Too often do we hesitate on things that we know we want. Um, for fear of doubt or I don't know, rejection. And there's in the event ontology of any decision, we we dilate time in elongate it in a painful way. It's prolonging and procrastinating pain for fear of it hurting when it already hurts. It's so funny because I know this, but in a very literal way that I'm not sure everybody will necessarily understand. So I'm gonna work with my visions on that. But like crossing the street is a also great example of this. Sans suspension, sans Sundance. Uh, but that moment, where you're unsure if the light is changes and you sort of hesitate walking. Those are often the most dangerous moments where cars will screech at their brakes or yell at you because they were turning or da 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 or yell at you because you're not walking yet. And we sort of expand this moment, this second of a moment in which we stop or go because we hesitate. And this is the same thing that we do with, or that we can do with with anything, prolonging, leaving a relationship, prolonging hard conversations, prolonging leaving a job, prolonging uh, having to make a doctor's appointment, and just hoping that things don't get worse. Although we know that the worry and the stress of it is constantly pulling tighter and tighter. Um, this two of clubs is very much about not just those decisions, but the space in between them. What occupies the space in between them? Because it's not just left or right, it's why you chose that direction. It's not just stay or go, or, stop at the corner or cross the street. It's very much what the cognition is and what your level of trust is for the information that you have in that moment. And if you do not feel like you have the information you need to trust the situation, then we can collapse that by making a choice. By making a choice to learn more, to, investigate, to, you know, the choice to wait. Again, with the crossing the street thing, I don't trust drivers, especially in the city. Um, and walking or not, you are often still. Uh, it's often still a scary issue. I have a theory that people driving in major cities are are not driving with the intention of speed or stopping the way like race car drivers or any driver should be. They're driving with the intention of an insurance claim, um, and what they can get you to do to essentially make a claim about. Um, and and that is another example in which they expand this process. They're creating more space for time, in which you could fuck up or they could fuck up. That's why drivers around cities are so unsure, or seem to be so unsure, uh, in a lot of ways. Um, and that's not to say that any decision, even choosing what to eat or drink in the morning, is an easy one, but the ways in which we ruminate on them over and over again and compare and contrast rather than neutralize is, again, what expands that moment to sort of eat away at everything else rather than to condense it, or to allow it to expand in a more positive way. Um, if you think about every moment as like this ebbing fucking raindrop, jello raindrop, just like throbbing. What is your moment throbbing with? Is it throbbing with, passion and excitement and intention and, trust? And you're sitting waiting at the corner because you know that the light's going to change and you're going to be great and you're not going to have to worry about a thing and your path is going to be clear? Or do you, uh, doubt and question and worry and wonder and question yourself and then, absorb all of the, middle fingers and insults hurled at you because you didn't do it fast enough or slow enough or blah, 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 blah. On, we have expansion in either case, but what is it expanding with? You know what I mean? And that is the space, again, between the burnout and exhaustion and grounding with will and passion. That is ultimately it. If you are ruminating on decisions, I don't necessarily think that now's the time where it's like, well, let me weigh the pros and cons and, put it on a scale and balance it. It's more so really, really getting into, central alignment with your nervous system and what you're perceiving, and being able to make a decision based off of that. Um, it doesn't need to be that complicated. Uh, but it'll feel like it if you don't fully trust yourself. And that's not a shot at anybody. I don't think that that's a I think that's a very human thing. But in those cases, do we let it, in that moment, do we let our lack of trust in ourselves expand and destroy everything around us, and destabilize the things around us? Or do we take that as an opportunity to expand our intellect and our intuition and in our consciousness and investigate why it is, or what it is that it's obfuscating or occluding or hiding the level of trust that we can have for ourselves. Um, it's not that we don't have it, it's that it is hidden by something else, by propaganda, by religion, by a plethora of other structures that this society has created so that we do not have trust in ourselves or the language to cultivate that. Um, This is what industrialization has brought us. This is what civilization is. Um, and conversely, I think that is a main factor of going back to the old way or the ancestral way, is learning how to trust yourself, because you trust the earth, because you trust the moment, because you trust uh, you, because you are the earth and the stars. Um, that's a very satanic way of looking at the world to some people, but isn't God in you? And if God is in water, then God is in everything. Um, if God is in water, then it's the hydrogen molecule that we should be praying to. Um, but by modern civilization religions. Um, okay, Queen of Hearts, Two of Diamonds, Ace of Spades. Um, Simple, well put. Again, within this space of stop or go, within this space of polarity. And I was thinking with this bottom card of polarity, and I was thinking this the other day too. Um, I think I think it's disillusioning to people to think that we have to accept this world as it is, because balance and polarity, and for there to be light there has to be dark. I understand that. I'm not arguing against that. However, the rapid magnitude between these two things is wild and extreme, and I think very much lends to a lot of emotional health difficulties, and uh, you know breaks and cracks within that as we move, because there's just so much going on. Um, but within that space, what this is saying is, this Ace of Spades is whatever choice you want, and whatever wish you have in the making, whatever uh, sense of reality that you really want to embody in the palm of your hand, right? But it's inverted. I don't necessarily know if you see that yet. And again, that's not any of our faults. That's because we've been raised in a system that doesn't want us to see ourselves. But in order to get to that, because that is still a door that is open, the way that the world has been constructed to close all of these doors on us has not closed them. It has hidden them, it has created a mirage, but those doors are still very much there, waiting and open for us to walk through, with all of our loved ones and our ancestors waiting there by the threshold. The Queen of Hearts and the Two of Diamonds is very much, like I said, going in, grounding, will and passion, finding what it is that fully balances the system, that aligns the system, that brings you ease, brings you harmony, brings you peace. Is that singing to yourself when you're doing the dishes, even if it sounds not great to you? Maybe. Yeah, absolutely. That's doing whatever it is that invigorates your life with will and passion. Not adrenaline, not addiction, not rage and power. I think those things, again, very much overlaid and occluded and obfuscated, because too often do people confuse uh, goodness with power, and your goodness uh, does not need to stand on the feet of tearing something else down. It's a power sickness. That's why we have the world that we do, that does not honor or hold sacred children. Um, let me not go too deep into that. Um, but this Queen of Hearts is scuba diving figure. It's oxygen. It's stabilization. If you've ever been scuba diving, I haven't, but there's common knowledge about, if you go up too fast, you get like oxygen bubbles in your blood. Can be very dangerous, can be very painful. Let's not rush through that. But um, let's not rush through that. Let's not abuse that. Let's not overtake it. That's again creating more space in between for understanding, rather than the extremes of polarity at the surface or at the bottom, right? Um, this is very much uh, calmness. It's very much fluidity. It's very much understanding. It's be like water. Be like water when everything around you is burning. And that's not to say that it's your responsibility to put it out, but that is to say that you can cool yourself. And by proxy, the space around you cools. You are your own swamp cooler, as long as you're inputting in positive hydrogen, in positive cooling, rather than rage, rather than anger. And that's not to negate those feelings. They're very real feelings. They have their place. They are something to be honored. Underneath them is more. Underneath the anger, underneath the fear, is insecurity, is sadness, is loneliness, is some of our greatest fears. I talked about a fear of loneliness in the last thing, but I think my greatest fear is a fear of inauthenticity. And that can absolutely create so much space in between decision making, so much space in between here or there. And that was so much more so when there was significant doubt or shame or guilt in my life. And doubt is a very natural response when we're constantly given new information. But how do we shorten the duration of those punitive processes? Again, do it because you want to, not because you have to. Choose love, choose goodness every day. Choose that over or choose passions over punitive processes and punishment and fear. And one of the easiest, most literal ways that I can say that in uh, clearer terms, I suppose, is the way that older couples will say that the key to a happy marriage is that you choose love every day. You wake up and you choose actively to love here every day, to do what you need to do to show this person that they are loved every day, especially when they're not feeling it. It's an everyday process, not a, well, of course I still love you, blah 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 blah, but you're not showing it, and that is where things really start to matter. That is where we have to show it to ourselves, to our body, to our minds, to those around us, if we want to keep those cycles moving, if we want them to choose these directions with us, if we want them to stay in the spaces between here and there and here and now. The Two of Diamonds is very much a cleansing understanding of all of this. It's almost like a great, like a major reset and like clean slate, but with a lot of information. Um, and I think a lot of information that uh, ultimately will be saved on the like hard drive of our minds, of our consciousness. But that's not to say that everything has to. Some pieces of all of that of our consciousness that are of our obfuscated consciousness that are holding us back are bugs in the program, um, and that have halted the program's ability to continue processing in a positive way. And it's like a virus, and it holds you back from being able to function as you intend to. Just a little computer nerd metaphor for you. Not that I am. That's just how shit comes through. It's very much like a cliffhanger moment. Like when songs are just kind of like da 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 da, like it's that kind of like tiptoeing cliffhanger, you know, cat creeping kind of moment, kind of sound, and while that is kind of like giving me like Jeopardy to like waiting music, um, is the difference between that being waiting and like ruminating, or waiting and like really understanding where it is that you're going, is again with time, when you're waiting and you're waiting, like waiting for a bus. Time fucking feels like it's taking forever, but when you know where you're going and you know you're good and you know you've created the room for delays, then it's almost like you get there faster. It's almost like, everything just works out, and there's less worry in the process, and time is less heavy. And these are the things that I think we need to be very clear about in the time coming forward, because otherwise the time around us and upon us will get to weigh much heavier unless we are able to condition ourselves with it and for it rather than against it. All right. All of that was very literal. We're gonna expand the moment. Um, and look deeper into the psychological energy of it. If you've read with me before, I think tarot and cartomancy is very much like space and time. And I use traditional playing cards and numbers to work with time. And I use traditional tarot to work with space. And so, even as I'm telling you about this is exactly what we're doing. We started from the middle and expanded time out towards the infinite, in which every moment lasts forever. So thank you for getting lost in time and space with me. Yes. All right. Let us expand through space and time by the grace of the moon. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. That was wonderful. And the exact opposite. I feel much more buoyant. I feel much more lifted. I feel like a lot of tingling in like major lymph node reservoirs. And I very much felt sort of like uplifting through that or by that in a fun, tickly way. Which makes me think, wading in water, floating, buoyancy, salt water, salt content, hydrogen bonds, viscosity, and all of the ways that that interacts with our body and memory, and the ways that we make ourselves more dense or more light by, the habits and the cycles that we choose and the decisions that we make. Even just weight in your shoulders sometimes from simple decisions that you just didn't want to do or felt that you had to, whether that be, white lies or kind secrets, or, saying, yes because you think you should, whatever that may be. Beyond all of that, what a blissful state to just be at ease and buoyant with the knowledge that you are. Oh, you're gonna love this. Mm, I love this actually. Um, Bottom of the deck, Knight of Swords. Um, that is a really great thing, and also do not let it be a bad thing. Do your best not to. The Knight of Swords is a beautiful card. Actually, when I first got this deck, it reminded me of myself a lot because it looks like they have a scar on their eye. On the left eye, no less. Uh, where's mine? Is on my right, my solar eye. And this, incredible moving forward steed, swords drawn. The Knight of Swords is very clear on their directive, is very clear on their goal, their will, their passion, their purpose. Um, all positive things. They're very clear about their knowledge. They're very trusting of themselves. Even the halo, maybe, around this character is less pronounced than others. Or less attention is drawn to it, even though there is still like a star in the center of it, right? Um, and that's very much, I think, in a very real way, how they do not need validation for confidence or strength. They do not need you to recognize that they are an angel or a warrior or powerful for that to be true. And that is something that I think is a very needed lesson in this world, because the most confident people are often the most insecure and the most desperate for validation, and they will take you down in order to get it. And it's quite sad. I unfortunately have seen too often that when uh, you know wounded hearts, wounded people really just want respect or validation, they will destroy things around them just to feel that it is so. Just to feel like they have that validation coming back to them. It's not a healthy relationship. Um, Conversely, if you are not at the state in which you fully trust your divinity or your glow or any of these things, or your knowledge or your intellect or your intuition, um, your intelligence, your intellect, or your intuition, then this halo and this subtle star is also recognition of ancestors, of power, of spirit, of divinity, of grace, also walking with you. Uh, should that be your directive? If that is your directive, then your spiritual council, your ancestors, your uh, calls to deities and what have you will walk with you. Um, your lost loved ones will always walk with you. That is truth and faith in that, very much so. Um, even in dreaming, if you've ever done the Gateway Project, there's absolutely like an incantation that I think very much aligns with Tantra, uh, to align and protect, um, to align and invigorate and protect. And that comes from you, but that also comes from those sources that you also put honor into. I don't want to say trust because we need to trust ourselves. But when you honor, uh, then you create this reciprocity of honor and trust between you and these energies that you may call in, whatever they may be. Um, Moving into, we have the Devil, we have the Page of Pentacles, and we have the Nine of Pentacles. All inverted, mind you. The only upright card here is the Knight of Swords. Um, and I know there's a lot of people that don't read inversions, but I will never understand why. Uh, and I know there's a lot of people with ideas about the Devil card, and I can totally understand why. I just wish they would read deeper. Um, with the Devil, this is very much especially being inverted. This is very much the ways in which we cyclically recreate the same poor circumstances, the same like claustrophobia and struggling, like the same, you know, fucking haunted funhouse room where the walls are closing in. The ways in which we recreate that over and over again. It's like Sisyphean task. It's like and that's very much often how circles of hell are depicted. Is it's you doing the same thing over and over again, you know, some terrible task or living, you know, your worst fear or living your worst nightmare, over and over and over again. And I am very much of the idea that this plane is heaven and this plane is hell, because this plane is heaven or hell. Your mind is what creates that around you or imprisons you or frees you, very much so. And with this inverted, I think this is very much in the ways that we imprison ourselves rather than enlighten ourselves. The ways in which we dull our light, the ways in which we hide our light, the ways in which, and again, going back to the validation and respect, people think that in order to get validation or respect, you have to snuff out somebody else's flame, and that is not the case. In my experience, the most fulfilling validation or respect that you could ever get is when your flame ignites other flames rather than suppresses them or blows them out entirely. But this is not what a free market or capitalism means, unfortunately. And hiding your own light very much becomes that room, that closing in room, and creates this claustrophobia. And I think that's also why a lot of people get really anxious and really uncomfortable in social situations, as those walls are closing in more and more as they interpret their sensory reality within themselves, as they interpret their own respect or validation within themselves and taking in data from around them rather than really trusting themselves. Um, you know, that's not to say I'm not always observing and taking in data, but we're constantly absorbing information, and it should make you question everything. You should question yourself so that you can be more clear and aware and embodied in yourself. And that again makes decisions and decision making um, that much easier. That's not to say you'll never have a bad or a hard time making a decision again in your life, but that is to say that you will see beyond the walls of the circle. You'll see beyond the cycle. You'll be able to see a level up. You'll be able to see a level down. You'll be able to see how the spiral moves through space and time rather than just dancing in circles like a blind fox. Um, da, 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 I have to say that this also, I think, lends itself to what we create within those circles. And if we hide from what we create, or if we like are fearful of creation in those circles, um, there's just there's these nubs, right? There's these budding, ripe, cherry-like eggs, and we don't allow ourselves to bloom when we confine ourselves to cyclical decisions and thought processes that are confining, that are constricting, that are suffocating. This is very much about suffocating your own creation, suffocating your own life force. And perhaps that's just in connection with something inanimate. Perhaps that's just in connection with your mind, and your own jadedness and heartbreak and what have you. I still go through that. I'm not immune. But also in the ways that that expands with other interactions. whether that be, misery loves company and creates other misery, or even scientifically, the chemicals in stress, and the chemicals in stress in your sweat will actually make other people really stressed out too, and they don't really know where it's coming from. They just know they're agitated. Uh, Outside of those contexts, or within those contexts, how do we create without suffocating? And a lot of times I think that really is as simple as not judging ourselves. And that's funny with the devil card because people love to judge the devil card. And I go right back to choosing love and choosing goodness, which is what the devil card is. Choosing consciously, intellectually, and intelligently, choosing love and choosing goodness, and to beware of anybody that thinks that they are just good for lack of effort, because they're just a good person. They're just good. They've just been good all this time, but they don't actively, consciously, cognitively, intellectually, or intelligently choose to be better. They're not challenging themselves in those ways. And those people will slip to exactly what they perceive to be evil again and again and again. The Page of Pentacles, I think, is very much also cherishing that understanding. Um, Cherishing that understanding and recognizing that truth within you. So that regardless of what anybody calls you, you know that, but I was actively choosing this. It's not necessarily excuses, circumstance. I'm always looking for understanding in other people's poor decisions, so that their excuses are invaluable to me. Um, but what ways do we make? Careful not to make excuses for yourself, but cultivate understanding, and and hold that process very close, and very true, and allow that to be a process that you start to see around you. I mean, I guess you don't really have to allow it. It'll happen anyway. You'll start to see how that replicates. You'll start to see how that reflects around you. And again, like I was talking earlier about not trust, but honoring and creating that reciprocity of honor and trust, because you have trust and honor to give. And because they'll have trust and honor to give. Not because one or the other is transactionally trading these things. The Nine of Pentacles that follows this is exactly that, because it is not a transactional wealth that creates this kind of reciprocity. If we consider it in those terms, then that brings us back to the respect and the validation thing, where people are desperately trying to find that through transactional means, and they will never have this Nine of Pentacles through those means. That's why it's inverted. This is a choice. You can have Nine of Pentacles, Ten of Pentacles, but you cannot seek uh, seek trust or honor or validation or respect outside of yourself. That has to be cultivated within, which is why the devil is here. The devil is here to show you that light, so that you can move with authenticity and not out of blind fear. And you know what, unfortunately, there is a fireball meteor shower coming up, and around the time, around spanning days around elections, and a lot of people will move in fear, and a lot of people will follow blindly. I don't care who they're voting for, if you're voting within the binary at all. um, you're moving out of fear, out of blind subservience and forced following. um, and people will carry that with them and continue to move in that, saying that they chose this once, so they continue this, and that's not how it works. How are we going to continue to exemplify the things that we choose, the things that we stand for? And how will we unblind ourselves so that we can finally stop moving in circles? Ooh, I didn't know this would get political, but shit, what isn't, right? Okay. There's a lot of earth, there's a lot of body, there's a lot of mind, there's a lot of fire. Um, when you think about breathing, breathe to expand in your body. When you think about breathing, think about filling your body. When you think about breathing, think about being so full in your body that it touches everything around you. Think about balancing, neutralizing the charge between the positive and the negative in the earth. If they are uh, opposite charges like magnets, not pulling, uh, not pushing, but out of sync, and you are the battery in the middle. How do you neutralize? How do you bring balance? How do you bring alignment? How do you bring grounding? How do you bring earth to you? Breathe through your nose. Breathe long, breathe deep, and breathe more. And pay attention to your breath, because if anything can dilate time and dilate a moment, and expands the event ontology in the best way, or contract it when need be. It is your breath. And breathing through your nose is healing for the body, and healing for the body will heal the trauma, and will heal the root chakra wounds, and will heal the wild mind that holds on to all of that pain and muscle and fascia. Get grounded, get real, get familiar with your trees, and get real familiar with you. I will leave it there. I've given you quite a bit to digest. What a delicious meal. Um, I will leave it there. And I wish you deep digestion. I wish you deep embodiment. I wish you deep grounding. And I thank you ceaselessly for being here and sharing this with me and taking interest in this kind of understanding and this kind of honoring. Yeah. So with that, happy new moon. Kaleleka, koika. I'm grateful for today. I'm grateful for you. I appreciate you. Tonetakoe. And I will see you next time. Party.